Have you ever noticed this strange contradiction? The part of you that craves intimacy can feel incredibly mature, and yet at the same time you can react like a child, needy, scared, ashamed, desperate to be chosen, desperate not to be left out. Most people never make the connection between these two worlds. They consider sexual energy a separate compartment. Desires here, childhood wounds there. But Carl Jung would say something unexpected and liberating at the same time. The psyche does not separate things in this way. This same inner energy that fosters connection is the same energy that nourishes your oldest and most unmet needs. This same energy that propels you toward union is also the one that protects your inner child from suffering. And if you learn to work consciously with it, your desire ceases to be a source of confusion and becomes a path to healing your inner child, not by repressing it, nor by giving in to it, nor by making it a battleground of morality, but by listening to what it symbolizes. For in Jung's theory, libido is not only a physical energy, but also a psychic one, a vital force that manifests itself through images, fantasies, dreams, drives, and emotions. And when libido intensifies, particularly through attraction, it awakens not only pleasure, but also the entire unconscious realm linked to relationships, kindness, surrender, security, power, and self-esteem. This is why a person can be deeply affected by another and suddenly become irrational, not because they are weak or broken, but because a complex has been triggered, an emotionally charged note in the psyche, formed long before adult logic had time to develop. Jung called these complexes semi-autonomous, meaning that when activated, they behave like little characters within us. And if you've ever asked yourself, why do I act this way? Jung would gently reply, it's not me, it's you, but not your whole being. It's a part of you, often a younger part, trying to get what you never received or to avoid past suffering. This is the thread you should hold on to for the rest of the video. The inner child doesn't primarily express itself through words. It expresses itself through energy, urgency, desire, fear, fantasy, physical intensity, and an electrical discharge disproportionate to the situation. And if you try to heal the inner child solely through positive thoughts or superficial affirmations, as long as your libido continues to operate unconsciously, you will repeat the same patterns under different guises, with different names, but always in the same emotional role. So what would Jung do? He wouldn't tell you to stop desiring. He wouldn't condemn desire. He wouldn't reduce your desire to something vulgar. I would ask you to go much further. Become aware of what your desire truly seeks to achieve. Because the ego thinks, I want it. The unconscious, on the other hand, generally says, I want to be satisfied. The ego says, I need this connection. The unconscious says, I need to find something I've lost. The ego says, if they choose me, I'm safe. The unconscious affirms, if I integrate what I have separated, I am free. This is why, according to Jung, sexual symbolism in dreams is rarely interpreted literally. He describes it as a union, the merging of opposites, the reconciliation of what is separate, of the inner masculine and feminine, of tendency and power, of innocence and maturity, of desire and security, of presence and surprise, of conscious intention and unconscious truth. Listen carefully, because what follows changes everything. The inner child is often the part of yourself that became detached when life forced you to adapt too quickly. Perhaps you had to be strong. Perhaps you had to be wise. Perhaps you learned that your needs were unwelcome. Perhaps you learned that attention only came after graduation, and that your younger self, your spontaneity, your gentleness, your genuine thirst for love wasn't dead, but rather hidden away, becoming the archetype of the child in the Jungian sense, the vulnerable yet powerful foundation of yourself, the beginning of renewal, the secret center of your vitality. But when the child archetype is wounded and unconscious, it doesn't manifest as gentleness, it manifests as compulsion, persecution, testing, fear of a slow response, a need for comfort never fully satisfied, an intensity that quickly depletes and descends into despair, an energy poverty, what Jung describes as perpetual poverty, perpetual youth, a yearning for perfect salvation, perfect love, the perfect feeling that finally brings security to life and sexual energy. By virtue of its power, becomes the shortest path to this wounded child. This is why one can be confident in their career while feeling powerful in intimacy, why one can be logical all day and become emotionally unstable at night, why one can promise oneself not to repeat an old pattern, and then a glance, a touch, a message, a moment of attention, and suddenly the same scenario repeats itself. Therefore, if you wish to heal your inner child through your sexual energy, the first step is not the technique, but the content. Jung believed that consciousness develops when the tension between opposites is maintained, without falling into either extreme, neither excess nor repression, but presence, perseverance, persistence, allowing the psyche to reveal what lies behind the impulse. Most people do the opposite. They expend their energy as quickly as possible through fantasies, distractions, searching, acting out, or escapism. And every time you do that, you lose the message, you lose the essence. Because libido isn't just fuel, it's information. That's how you begin to work with it. Right where you are in reality, without turning it into abstract theory. The next time you feel a surge of sexual energy, attraction, and excitement, that magnetic feeling, don't try to resolve it immediately. Just for a moment, not forever, and not as a strict rule, just long enough to catch your psyche in the act. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself a question that your wounded inner child can't answer with words, but that your body can answer with sensations. What do I truly need right now? Not what I desire. I need it. Do I need comfort? Do I need to feel important? Do I need calm? Do I need to feel strong? Do I need to feel safe? Do I need to feel seen? I need to feel loved, because to be loved is to feel alive. It's not about judging the need, but about naming it, because unnamed needs become compulsions, while named needs become choices. And by naming it, something else will emerge. This is where Jung intervenes surgically. You will then see the projection. Projection is when an internal image, an archetype, is attributed to another person. This is particularly evident with the anima and animus, the inner feminine image in men, the inner masculine image in women. Although Jung's deepest idea is universal, we all carry within us inner opposites, counter-sexual energies, inner figures that shape our relationships with others. When projection is active, the other person seems magical, predestined, immense, as if they possess the missing piece of yourself. And in a way they do possess it, not because it is the missing piece, but because they activate it. They connect with the sleeping child within you. They awaken in you that part of you that believed love would ultimately solve everything. And if you don't free yourself from this projection, if you don't withdraw the energy you've invested in it, you'll continue chasing after others to do inner work they can never complete. So here's the second step. When desire arises, don't focus solely on the other person. Visualize the situation as a whole. What is the fantasy? What is the story? What does your mind imagine will happen if you come together, if you connect, if you finally have it, if you are finally chosen? Is that it? Then I will suffice. Is that all? Then I won't be alone anymore. Is that all? Then I can relax. It's the inner child speaking through the adult's desires. And now, instead of managing it, you adopt a Jungian approach, which may seem strange at first because it requires you to become the parent your psyche has never known. You access your inner child directly, not through childlike language, but through presence. You calmly tell yourself internally, I understand. You don't say, stop. You don't say, that's embarrassing. We don't say, we don't need it. That's how the problem gets worse. We must say, I understand. I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to protect me. You're trying to be affectionate. You're trying to make sure we never abandon each other again. Only genuine recognition allows for integration. For what the inner child desires most is not gratification, but recognition. The goal is to regain awareness, rather than retreating into the depths of the psyche. This is where many people fear, because simply ceasing to release this energy doesn't make it disappear. It intensifies, and that's a good thing. It's not pleasant, but it's beneficial, because you can now see what it contains. Sexual energy, when trapped, transforms like heat into alchemy. Jung was fascinated by alchemy because he saw in it the symbolic reflection of a psychic transformation. The exceptional substance penetrates the target. The fire is applied. The substance decomposes, reorganizes itself, and something new emerges. Your libido is the exceptional substance, your consciousness is the target, and your capacity to remain present without acting is the fire. But there is a sin. When the fire rises, the mirror rises too. That is why some people, when they try to control their desires, suddenly feel shame, anger, sadness, emptiness, or even embarrassment. They assume that something is wrong. Jung would say that something is finally emerging into consciousness, because the inner child carries not only innocence, but also everything it has had to accumulate: humiliation, fear, loneliness, anger, unacknowledged desires, the pain of misunderstanding, the pain of inaction, and sexual energy, because it penetrates so deeply that it permeates the entire sensory field. The third step then is shadow work, but not the trendy version, not the slogan, "I accept my shadow," but genuine shadow work, rediscovering the repressed emotions of youth. Ask yourself without dramatizing, what feeling lies behind this shame? Sometimes it's a tendency, sometimes pain, sometimes loneliness, sometimes unexpressed anger, sometimes a desire to be enveloped, protected, comforted. And here's the important point. You don't need to resolve this issue immediately. You simply need to work through it for a long time so that it no longer possesses you. Jung's goal wasn't to purify you, but to make you whole. Unity means being able to feel desire without being rejected, without succumbing to it, without experiencing attraction, or while remaining true to yourself. From this point on, the inner child begins to trust you because, for the first time, it perceives an adult presence that doesn't disappear as soon as the intensity increases. It's a form of parental re-education at the level of libido. Let's delve deeper into this subject, because healing the inner child isn't just about suffering, but also involves releasing its energy. The inner child is vital force: joy, creativity, spontaneity, wonder, the capacity to feel without reacting immediately. Wounded, sexual energy becomes anxious and compulsive. Integrated, it radiates and stimulates creativity. How then does sexual energy transform into healing energy? Through sublimation, properly understood. Sublimation is often confused with repression. Jung doesn't mean that we should plunge headlong into desire. He means that we must raise this energy toward a higher expression, allowing the libido to blossom through the psyche, toward creativity, courage, honesty, toward an intimacy that is not a performance, but a genuine presence. This is a practice Jung would immediately recognize because it acts directly on the unconscious imagination, on the active imagination. When the libido awakens, especially when it feels deceived by desire, sit in silence and give this energy an image, not a fantasy of someone else, but an image of the inner child. Don't try to force it, let it manifest. Perhaps it will appear as a younger version of yourself, perhaps as a symbol, a room, a door, a small figure, a forgotten object. Jung taught that the psyche expresses itself through symbols, and the archetype of the inner child often presents itself as something small and precious, something that needs to be protected. Now, instead of analyzing, have a dialogue. Ask your child, what are you afraid of if we don't insist? Ask them, what do you think needs reassurance? Ask them, what do you want me to know? Then listen, not with your logic, but with your feelings. The answers may come in the form of words, images, sensations, or memories. And when something happens, do what a hurt child needs most. Stay present. Don't argue. Don't run away. Don't say, that's irrational. Say, I'm here, I'm not leaving. This inner affirmation can dispel years of unconscious panic, because the inner child's suffering isn't from not getting everything they wanted, but from feeling alone with their emotions. Many adults reproduce this pattern. They feel an intense emotion and give in, taking refuge in stimulation, distraction, searching, or isolation. Thus, when you are fully present with your libido, you do the opposite. You are in harmony with yourself. This is why sexual energy can heal the inner child, because libido is a direct access to the higher levels of the psyche. And if you manage to infuse this pathway with love, structure, and awareness, you cease repeating past patterns. Now, there is another level that Jung insists on addressing: the imprints of the mother and father, what psychology calls connection patterns. But Jung described it using complexes and architectural imagery. If your desire becomes restless, frantic, and tinged with fear of rejection, a maternal complex may have been activated, a deeply ingrained pattern centered on the need to care for others, security and acceptance. If your desire becomes performative, competitive, and driven by the need to prove your worth, a paternal complex may have been activated, a deeply ingrained pattern centered on the need for approval, authority, and submission. This is not about blaming the parents. Jung wasn't interested in assigning blame. He was interested in liberation. Liberation comes when we recognize that this feeling is old, not that it's invalid, but that it's a repetition. The fourth step is this. When you feel desire, observe whether this energy stems from a need for adult fulfillment or a childlike thirst. Adult fulfillment means, I want connection, and I can distance myself from it even if it's not present. Childlike thirst, on the other hand, means, I need this to feel good, and if it's not there, something inside me panics. When you perceive this childlike fullness, don't blame it. It's essential. Guilt is what keeps the complexity hidden. Instead, do something counterintuitive. Give this childlike part of yourself what it desires, but from within. If she seeks to isolate herself, offer her that isolation. You can literally place a hand on your head and breathe slowly, signaling the security of your nervous system. If she seeks recognition, speak to her silently about recognition. Everything is fine. We can manage the mistrust. We are not abandoned. If she wants to be seen, record a few phrases of your son's voice, not to please her, but to observe her. If she seeks protection, set a boundary in your life, a boundary you avoid. Because sometimes the inner child doesn't need more romance. It needs you to stop forgiving yourself. Now observe what happens. Your libido may fluctuate. You may sneeze, feel hot, or experience intense arousal. This is brain energy flowing from one channel to another. And if you persist in this practice, you will begin to feel something extraordinary. Desire becomes less desperate, purer, less anxious, more alive, less deceived by fear, more in tune with meaning. This is the beginning of individuation, the path to becoming a person no longer guided by unconscious fragments. And here we are faced with Jung's secret, often overlooked in modern discussions about sexuality. Eros is not limited to attraction. Eros is the beginning of the relationship, the capacity to connect with life, with oneself, with others, with one's deepest being. When erotic love is wounded in childhood, one may seek connection through intensity rather than intimacy. Desire and love may be confused. Chemistry may be sought because it provides a fleeting sense of identity. Thus, healing the inner child through sexual energy means transforming intensity into intimacy. And intimacy, from a Jungian perspective, is an inner union, the marriage of opposites within you. This is where your sexual energy ceases to be focused on receptivity and becomes focused on integration. You unify your inclinations with your strengths. You unify your desires with your stability. You unify your innocence with your discernment. You integrate your passion with your limitations. And when these opposites meet, the psyche no longer needs to intervene to heal the wounds of the inner child in adult relationships. This is why some relationships become addictive. They perpetuate the separation. The psyche continues to seek unity because it still doesn't know how to unite internally. This, then, is the fifth stage. Deliberately maintain the tension between opposites. The next time you feel a strong urge, try this inner experience. Fully feel that desire in your body without giving into it, and at the same time fully experience your own presence without emptying yourself of your essence. Let love and self-control coexist, calm and sovereignty, attraction and inner security. This is what Jung called the transcendental function. When opposing forces unite without favoring one over the other, a third thing emerges, a new consciousness, a new reaction, a new identity. It arises spontaneously. And it is this new consciousness that heals the inner child, because the child finally experiences being an adult capable of managing their emotions without worrying. And now let's get down to more concrete things. If this remains purely theoretical, next time you'll find yourself swimming and falling back into your old habits. The energy is building. These are the times when you should practice, because transformation doesn't happen under ideal conditions. It happens in response to concrete stimuli. Practice when you feel the need to feel validated. Practice when you feel the need to check, to pursue, to prove. Practice when you feel the need to disappear, to empty yourself, to detach. At that moment, you don't need a perfect ritual. You need a conscious interruption, a breath, a pause, a question. Which part of me is in control now? If the answer is the child, then you become an adult. And you act like an adult. You choose a response that preserves your dignity and integrity. This may mean that you don't send the message. It may mean that you do send it. But stay calm instead of panicking. This might involve redirecting your energy toward creation. Write, move, express the truth you've been suppressing. Because libido can turn into anger if you stop releasing it. And when we stop emptying ourselves of our feelings, something else happens. The inner child begins to live again without despair. Not as a wound that needs healing, but as a living presence within us. You begin to feel happier, more creative, more emotionally authentic. You begin to feel attraction without losing yourself. You begin to experience intimacy, not as a performance, but as a connection. Here's a subtle sign of your healing. Your fantasies are changing. When the inner child is wounded, fantasies often revolve around rescue, choice, obsession, and the need to prove one's worth. When the inner child is integrated, fantasy focuses less on validation and more on communion, less on verification and more on presence, less on escapism and more on truth. There remains one last obstacle that Jung invites you to confront, for it lies at the heart of the child's inner suffering and hides behind desire. Like a mask, the fear of being truly seen. The child has learned that if he were fully seen, he would risk being rejected. Thus the adult hides behind masks, seductive, charming, affectionate, attractive, strong, and reserved. Sexual energy can reinforce these masks or cause them to fall. If libido is used for penetration, the child remains hidden. If you use your libido to be fully present, your child will come home. So, the next time you feel that surge of energy, try this. Instead of asking yourself how to be more desirable, ask yourself where you're afraid to be yourself. Because your inner child doesn't heal when you become perfect. It heals when you become honest and confident in yourself. And confidence isn't someone else's responsibility. This becomes your inner climate. But stay with me while you give. And when you do, the energy will not disappear. It transforms. It becomes stability. It becomes clarity. She becomes a warmth that doesn't beg. She becomes a quiet strength that doesn't need to dominate. She becomes that presence that makes intimacy real, not because you have finally found the perfect person, but because you have finally stopped neglecting the most important relationship of all, the one you have with your own soul.